I think eventually, at least our type of vision at Composable is we get to a point where a user can just express what they would like to do as simply as I want to swap some Ethereum for Atom. And this all kind of goes under the hood and just the user gets back some Atom. No bridges, no page navigation, no app connections. It's just done for you and taken care of.
Today, I interviewed Joe of Composable Finance. We're going to talk about what he would like to see in crypto next year.
And I'm pretty excited to see some of these networks that have been a little bit more nascent kind of come to the forefront.
What he expects to see in crypto in 2024.
We're going to see a lot of trading volume that would have happened on perpetual contracts on centralized exchanges.
And of course, what is Composable Finance and what can we expect from the team?
I think we would describe our solution as the most trust minimized way of interoperability, I guess, to boil it down. Ethereum IBC and Solana IBC are two biggest things on the horizon in terms of new connections. In Q1, Q2 of next year, we start to see coming out on the composable side a little bit more on how you can kind of interact with these things a little bit more seamlessly. So we're really excited for that.
If you find these videos educational, be sure to smash that like button, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. I feel like there's like two types of people that are in Web3. Those that believe that we should build horizontally and those that feel like we need to build vertically. So like those people that believe in like EVM and layer 2 scaling solutions. And then on the other side of that, where, people believe that there's room for multiple chains and they all need to be interconnected. And I think it's pretty safe to say you're on the second option there. But why do you think that is the future?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess I can speak for me personally. Like, I got into this stuff quite a while ago, and I used to think like it would only be Bitcoin, right? I think probably over like more of the last cycle. I mean, we had Ethereum and some ICOs in 2017, and the last cycle I think really took off in terms of people kind of not digging their heels in the ground, but at least like pledging like some allegiance to like a base chain, whether it be like big Solana guys or Ethereum or AVAX or maybe Arbitrum on layer 2 is your home. I think like we've really started to see the market speak in terms of there won't only be one. And then I guess like kind of tying that into Composable, I mean, we look at it as such and view that, okay, if that is going to be the future, kind of what's the best way for these things to interact with one another, where maybe you can be a maximalist on Avalanche, but you could still go do things on Ethereum and you don't really have to leave, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So walk me through the journey, because I feel like what you're focusing on is, it's one thing to focus on one ecosystem, right? But you're creating an ecosystem of ecosystems, essentially. You're helping them to be able to connect. Like, how is that beyond just the technical part? Like, how has that been from a strategy perspective?
I mean, it's interesting, right? Because like when you talk about applications, whether they live as their own chain or just a smart contract, they're always looking for ways to get more user interaction and more liquidity and more value and whatever it actually is. And a lot of these kind of have felt, I guess, somewhat cornered throughout the bear market in the sense where there just hasn't really been a whole ton of like new users looking at these things. So we've sort of looked at it in a way as like Composable sort of helps you interact with an audience as a application that you might not really be able to touch as you sit right now. So I think we've seen a lot of teams and protocols kind of open to the idea of working in the sense like hook up to the composable infrastructure and figure out how we could do something together. But I think this idea of just this really super like cross-chain interoperability where it's not simply bridging back and forth is really new to people. So we found that like there has, I guess, been quite a bit of a learning curve just in breaking the market into everything that we're doing.
What do you think, paying attention to the current market, what do you think is the narrative right now?
So, I mean, I think maybe luckily for us, even though we're a little bit outside of this, but I guess like kind of the app chain modularity, data availability type stuff, I think is where we're heading. And I think we've seen a little bit of it out of Cosmos, where everything kind of lives its own app chain. But now we start to see more interesting solutions with data availability layers like Celestia or Eigenlayer. And I think we're kind of heading towards a future where applications may not just be a smart contract. We start to see a lot more of these app-specific chains in general.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I mean, Celestia is doing really well, and Injective has just been on a complete tear lately. And personally, I'm of the belief that because a lot of these chains that are utilizing Cosmos SDK that are within the Cosmos ecosystem, a lot of them have been tested. This is kind of goes to the conversation that I was having with Max, aka Crypto Kim of Archway, and he brought up a good point that Cosmos ecosystem as a whole has been tested through and through with the UST collapse and all those projects that have been pegged to UST. So them and Solana, of course, has been tested, right, with the FTX collapse. And so I feel like you're now starting to see those chains that continue to build through those tough times. We're starting to see like a little bit of light ahead, and we're starting to see that type of tech shine through. What are your thoughts on that, Liv?
No, I mean, I think like realistically speaking, like Cosmos has been out for quite some time now, like late 2018. Solana has had its life for quite a while now too. I mean, last cycle, everyone had quite a great ride over there. But I think like generally speaking, in terms of the usability from a user's like interactive standpoint, both of these ecosystems and a lot of the ecosystems we see outside of Ethereum really haven't been there yet in terms of, I guess, just user onboarding. And I say that in the sense that like the experience that you have with maybe a hardware wallet and MetaMask has been like so seamless on Ethereum for quite a while. But you hop over to Cosmos and you start to have some issues generating a second wallet address with Kepler and a hardware wallet, or you see like Solana just got Trezor wallet support, I think yesterday or 2 days ago. And you start to realize like some of these things that we sort of take for granted on, I guess, Ethereum and MetaMask in particular, really haven't been there yet for a lot of these ecosystems. And I think that's probably what's played kind of a key role in onboarding this stuff. Because generally speaking, I mean, Ethereum is crazy enough. You start to talk to somebody who lives outside of this world about these alternate ecosystems and different wallets and how to get onboarded. And it's just a whole mess for somebody to get there. So I think we're sort of kind of coming over the crest of being able to have some like real strong like usability across these types of chains.
Talking to somebody that is more dev focused, they understand the importance of connecting different ecosystems. But as a user, they may not necessarily see it until they're actually using the applications themselves, and they're seeing like, oh, I can actually easily go from this particular ecosystem to the other, and swap specific tokens. I would be curious to know, because this is something that you're focused on. Like, where do you see the current industry from a user experience, and where do you feel like we could be by this next bull market?
Yeah, totally. I mean, sort of just following on of what I was just saying, like I think all of us that are in this space really take for granted just like the level of nerd that we have actually achieved in the ability to go to Uniswap and get some wrapped ETH and take it across the bridge to Arbitrum, and maybe you go to Camelot Dex and you swap for a token that only lives over there. And like, we all think that's simple, but I mean, you tell somebody to go on and just do a swap on Uniswap, and it's really like a mind-boggling experience for them. So I think like we really have just started to get into things in terms of getting into this world where these interactions are totally abstracted away for the end user. And I think eventually, at least our type of vision at Composable, is we get to a point where a user can just express what they would like to do as simply as, I want to swap some Ethereum for Atom. And this all kind of goes under the hood, and just the user gets back some Atom. No bridges, no page navigation, no app connections. It's just done for you and taken care of. And I think that's sort of the realm, or at least the next frontier of sort of user acquisition to this space.
Yeah, that kind of goes back to what I was saying, that the biggest drawback to Cosmos right now is the lack of liquidity. The tech is amazing, but being able to get that liquidity from Ethereum has not been the easiest transition. And so that's where, you and what you're working on with Composable Finance is extremely important. So that's something that I think our listeners need to understand in terms of like where the emphasis is and what we could see here in the near future. So on that note, can you shed a little bit of light in terms of what you have been working on to kind of help create that type of like seamless transition?
Yeah, totally. So our project kind of breaks down into two pieces. So I'll go one by one here, but we have our Picasso parachain that lives on Kusama network right now. This sort of underpins everything that we've been doing with IBC. So that's Polkadot to Kusama IBC, Kusama to Cosmos IBC. In the near future, it'll be Ethereum to Cosmos, Ethereum to Solana. Everything that's sort of connected to piping under the rails, that's all Picasso, sort of the infrastructure side there. Later into next year, when we launch our sort of composable side, this would be what lives on the Polkadot parachain. This is sort of the app on top, and kind of what I was alluding to, where users can come, and just express their intention for a swap, or maybe they want to stake assets somewhere or borrow assets somewhere. And it should be as simple as saying like, hey, I want to lend this asset and borrow that asset. And under the hood, the piping obviously takes care of the connections itself. But there should also be an ecosystem of something that's called solvers, where there's actual actors looking at the network, determining, hey, what might be the best path to achieve this for the end user, and then sort of delivering it back to them without really having to go step by step yourself.
I mean, you must have a very like robust dev team, because you're talking about building on Kusama, which uses Cosmos SDK, but you're also talking about Polkadot, which is Polkadot SDK, which is completely different technology. I mean, is this something that you know yourself, or are you working with like a dev team on all this? Like, what goes into the development?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think like with things that we've had in existence for a little while, like Cosmos, Polkadot, Kusama, Ethereum, I mean, we have developers that are sort of dedicated to each kind of tech stack in and of itself. I think kind of over the last 6 months, we've really had to move a big chunk of the team into like research heavy domain, where it's sort of stuff that hasn't really been done before or like tackled, so to speak. And we're kind of writing the script ourselves. And that's primarily with like the Solana side on the bridging. But we do have a pretty robust dev team just in terms of who's focused where and what they can actually focus on. I mean, it does span quite a bit. Yeah.
Yeah, it needs to, right? In order to be able to accommodate all of these different chains. And also from a security side, I mean, I imagine that, it could open up potentially like a lot of vulnerability. So making sure that you have like personnel that understands this stuff is extremely important.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think once you get into anything, cross-chain security becomes absolutely paramount because things really start to unfold.
Absolutely. Yeah. What are you looking forward to this next bull market?
Oh man, I mean, this one's been crazy for me. I should say the beginning of this cycle has been crazy for me, just in terms of how much development is kind of going on across the board. I mean, I think we spoke a little bit about like the major themes of like modularity, data availability, et cetera, et cetera. But I'm pretty excited to see some of these networks that have been a little bit more nascent kind of come to the forefront. I really think Cosmos is like an excellent candidate for that. It's been there. The tech is great. It's been chugging along. Tech is great. It's kind of the tagline, but it's been chugging along, and really, it just hasn't gotten that like mass like user focus that I think a lot of people expected it to yet. So I'm pretty excited to see some of these chains that have been here for a while kind of come to the forefront and what might actually develop on top.
On that topic, there seems to be two different narratives when it comes to Cosmos. On one hand, you've got a lot of these chains within Cosmos that are doing really well, but it does not necessarily reflect in Atom. Why do you think that is? What can Cosmos do to fix that?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like you sort of have this issue in Cosmos with like, I mean, we call it security fragmentation, I suppose, so to speak. So Atom secures the Cosmos hub, yes, but then you have all these other chains that are being secured by their own token. And I think in terms of kind of like resolving this, we've seen some attempts with ICS being interchain security, where the Cosmos hub can actually lend its validator set and security out to another chain. We've seen some talk about mesh security, where multiple tokens are used across securing these networks. And then like, I mean, this is lesser of the battle, I think, but more recently we saw a proposal go through on Cosmos that reduced the inflation rate itself, sort of reducing the supply that goes out year by year. So I think I really don't know what the absolute solution is for whole, but I think some combination of these makes sense, where we start to see this inflationary reduction. The tokens across the ecosystem are working in tandem to secure everything in the ecosystem. And it really starts to jive more as this like collective band rather than these like independent app chains that you can bridge between right now.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned that you started off just being, a big fan of Bitcoin, and then you quickly realized that there's room for other chains. What were you doing before you started building Composable Finance?
So, man, I got into this space end of 2011, early 2012. And my friends and I were doing like GPU, profit switching, script-based consensus coins. So this is stuff like Litecoin, Vertcoin, Feathercoin, all these crazy things that exist. And I actually got into the space a little bit more on the traditional finance side of the CMS, where I helped them launch crypto OTC trading desk. I was one of the first employees there. And I spent a couple years over there before jumping over to CMS Holdings to help them work on their venture side, sort of when DeFi was really kicking off. And we were a seed investor in Composable. The folks at Composable were just people I kept in touch with for a while after I left CMS. So I was kind of helping out behind the scenes as much as I could, and sort of came on board there about a year and a half ago at this point, just as a little bit more of a, I guess, full-time role as to what I was kind of doing, helping out as an investor. So it's been a long journey, but I think the last leg of the wheel here has kind of been seeing things from the builder's point of view or the protocol side. So it's been really cool.
So what exactly is your role within Composable Finance? Is it more like an advisor?
Initially, yeah, that's kind of how I was operating with them. Right now, I work as head of strategy here. So this sort of encompasses everything from a little bit of BD and partnerships to more of our go-to-market strategy on which chains we'll connect with, which applications we'll connect with, what we'll actually do in terms of creating liquidity pools or lending markets, how we can kind of integrate and kind of seeing things, I guess, from the top of the broader picture and how we kind of push outwardly in that regard.
All right. Well, give me a bold prediction. It could be something that is out there where might not be a strong chance of happening, but give me something that you're not necessarily hearing, but you feel like, okay, this could potentially happen. It could be Cosmos related. It could be, just any ecosystem related. Do you have like a bold prediction of what you can expect here within the next 2 years?
I don't know if this is going to be super bold, but I think something that will be really interesting coming into this cycle is we're going to see a lot of trading volume that would have happened on perpetual contracts on centralized exchanges migrate itself to on-chain. So, I mean, at this point, you've got quite a bit of options across Solana and Ethereum. And I think with some of the wreckage that we saw with the last bear market, a lot more of this stuff is going to be happening on-chain. Maybe it's not super bold, but I think we get to the point where perpetual contracts in general start to outpace this stuff on centralized venues.
So do you feel like this lines up nicely for someone like Arbitrum, because they have a lot of projects that are focused on like perpetual trading?
Yeah, something like Arbitrum. There's some great products on Solana already. Ethereum's had a few here and there. I guess DYDX actually migrated itself to a Cosmos chain, but we still can interact quite a bit from the Ethereum side too. So I really think like we've kind of reached this point of critical mass where there's so many options out there. There's pretty decent liquidity on a handful of these. I think a lot of users have either been kicked out because of KYC gating or something like that, or they're just, from a safety point of view, they feel better operating from a hardware wallet as opposed to giving someone their money to hold. So I think it's kind of a lot of things in tandem working towards this.
What about Composable Finance? Like anything that we haven't really touched on that you'd like to add in terms of like what you guys are focused on, who you want to connect with, anything that's on your mind?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I guess just like it's a real quick snippet from our roadmap coming up. Ethereum IBC and Solana IBC are our two biggest things on the horizon in terms of new connections. I think Q1, Q2 of next year, we start to see coming out on the composable side a little bit more on how you can kind of interact with these things a little bit more seamlessly. So we're really excited for that. And I guess in terms of teams and who we'd like to talk to, I mean, we're really open to anyone across the ecosystem. I think us personally, we are super agnostic in terms of who the partnerships are with or what we do with them. But the goal really is to get these things connected in the best way possible. So we're always open to chat. And yeah, I think that probably sums it up pretty good.
Yeah, I think that's in the integrations, the partnerships, it's a win-win for everybody, right? It's a win for you guys. It's a win for the other ecosystems and for anybody listening that is, investor. I mean, ultimately, that's what we want, right? We want everything to be interconnected. It makes it a lot easier for liquidity to be able to flow from one area to another. And everybody wins in that particular case. So amazing, Joe. Appreciate you coming on and giving us a rundown of what we can expect, your personal views, and a little bit about your background. Any parting thoughts for the listeners?
The future is multi-chain. Don't be too quick to stake your allegiance to one. And yeah, looking forward to all the stuff that kind of comes out of this next cycle.
Great. And how can people get in touch with you and what you guys are building in Composable Finance?
The easiest way to find the rest of us is on the Composable Finance website. We've got a group chat, Discord, Telegram, Twitter. We're always open to chat, whether it's just brainstorming or some type of actual concrete partnership. And I guess the typical channels are the best way to go.
Perfect. I'll be sure to include those in the description so people can get in touch with you. Appreciate you hopping on, Joe.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you for the time.